Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video and the Jonathan Hermits. Here's Ukraine War news update. The number today, I don't know how many I've done, too many. This is on the geopolitics concerning the war in Ukraine. We're going to start with Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister, who's doing a really good job of supporting Ukraine. I think she's from the Green Party in Germany, who are in coalition with the SPD. She is SDP. She is over in Kiev at the moment, arrived there unannounced on the train this morning. It's her fifth visit to Ukraine since Russia decided to launch the invasion on Ukraine. In a press conference with Dmitry Kuleba, Kuleba himself, the foreign minister for Ukraine, appealed for Germany and the West to start shooting down Russia's missiles on their territory. He emphasised they did not ask for the Allies to shoot down Russian planes. I think we are hopefully moving towards a situation where the West will help, or Allies will help Ukraine much more formally in terms of, or much more tangibly in terms of troops, trainers on the ground in Ukraine, in terms of shooting down missiles from, say, Poland, Patriots with a wide range, literally a range that covers much of the west of Ukraine. I don't know if they can reach all the way to Lviv. That'd be amazing. I just think it's insane that we are seeing what I was just putting on Twitter just now, that it just amazes me that we are seeing this horrible bombing across the border into Ukraine, that we are seeing images like this of multiple launched rockets slamming into to urban areas across the border in Ukraine. Right, that's coming from Belgorod, and yet we're in this situation where no one is, well, the US isn't allowing Ukraine to strike back. It's just really blows my mind, as I discussed in an earlier video. So perhaps we're getting to a point where certain politicians of certain countries are really going to start putting pressure on the US, and we might get a change, hopefully a change of policy there. Baerbock herself has said our support is rooted in the deep conviction that Ukraine will win this war. Together with many other countries from all parts of the world, Germany is standing rock solid by Ukraine's side. Really strong rhetoric. I'd like to see more of what comes out of that meeting. The EU wants to start negotiations on Ukraine's accession in June. Behind the scenes, diplomats from the EU and Ukraine are working intensively to try to persuade the Hungarian government to give its approval to opening talks on Ukraine's accession. We can imagine that Viktor Orban and the Hungarian administration will be the thorn in the side of Ukraine's accession to the EU. And possibly Slovakia and Fico as well. Ukraine and its supporters in the EU are calling for an intergovernmental conference between Brussels and Kiev before Hungary takes over the presidency of the EU Council in July the 1st. So July the 1st is a bit of a problem moment because Hungary are going to take over presidency, and it's impossible to predict what Hungary will do until we hear from Viktor Orban. This could be a very troubling time for Hungary to take on that presidency role. More chinks, though, in Putin's kleptocratic armour, says Jay in Kiev, as anti-Orban protests spread to more Hungarian cities. So Orban's 20-year looting bonanza has left Hungary the second poorest country in the EU and aligned it with Russia, Iran and China. So we are seeing a chap called Peter Magyar, who's becoming more and more popular around Hungary. He even did a bit of a rally recently in, of all places, a particularly conservative rural setting, more of a rural setting, where he got a massive crowd, and that's really good news. We have Poland arresting 9 suspects of sabotage ordered by Russia, says Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. He emphasised that the case is very serious. According to him, in addition to Poland, this applies to several European countries, including Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, and similar signals are also being observed in Sweden. My goodness. I mean, if it's not immediately obvious that we're at war with Russia, this should send alarm bells ringing, but well, we'll come on to my gripes in a second. Attention Sweden. So talking of Sweden, Russian propagandist Margarita Simonyan wants to teach Sweden a lesson, and it looks like annex it. praising Putin, and Belousov, the defense minister, is also included in what she says. I'm not going to read out what she said. You get the idea. This kind of genocidal and incredibly divisive, problematic rhetoric that comes from the propagandists on state television is sanctioned by the government, right? They wouldn't be saying these things if the Russian government didn't allow that, countenance it, sanction it. So if you want to know what Russia thinks, go to these people. They are throwing out these absolutely abhorrent ideas to see how they land with the public. Public don't seem to mind too much. And the Kremlin appears not to mind. And yeah, this is kind of what the imperialistic Russia appears to want to do. A Russian delegation has arrived in Pyongyang on May the 20th. The South Korean news agency Yonhap has reported, citing North Korean state media. Again, if you want to know what side Russia are on, if you want to know who they are, if you want to know what kind of country they are the country that gets munitions off North Korea, a dictatorship in this axis of evil, and they use those munitions by sending them across the border into Ukraine to blow up Ukrainian cities, targets, and then we don't allow Ukraine to retaliate by firing into Russia. Is absolutely incredible. Anyway, this is fascinating. So going on to a bit of American politics, and I am going to have a bit of a whinge, but it's about a particular type of American a voter in the US that I think is really worrying. But this is fascinating from Mitch McConnell, the minority leader in the Senate for the Republicans, long term, basically has run the Republican Party for the last sort of 15 years or so. This is what Mitch McConnell has to say on Face the Nation. Oops, bear with me 2 ticks. Sorry, I had my computer on mute. I hope previous sound wasn't getting in the way when I was saying something earlier.
In the time of the delay, Russia's military land forces have grown back to where they were before the invasion. The army's 15% larger, and they've reinforced the 20% of Ukrainian territory that they hold. These are all the words of the Supreme Allied Commander himself. Do you feel your party is responsible for those setbacks?
Many of them, yeah.
That is the Republican Party. Do you feel the Republican Party is responsible for the Ukrainian setbacks? And he says...
many of them, yeah. We took too long. This issue was like a family reunion, if you will, with a lot of different points of view being expressed around the table. All the Democrats were for Ukraine. There's no question that the debate was in our family, on our side, and there was a lot of skepticism for a long time. But
in the time...
That's a massive admission, by the way. So you've got the main GOP guy who was very much in favour of supporting Ukraine. Actually, I can't fault him on that, Mitch McConnell. To a large degree, he's been very consistent on his support for Ukraine. Occasionally, cited being a bit too open to like Trump's rhetoric and whatnot, but generally, like for Ukraine, he gets absolutely hammered by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene now for being a Republican name only and Rhino, when he's the one that's basically positioned the Republican Party for the last 15-20 years. Like, he is far more consistently Republican than Marjorie Taylor Greene will ever be, and yet he got a bit of a pasting for that. But he's saying it how it is there. Like, there was absolute commitment from unity from the Democrats with regard to Ukraine support. It's the issue came on the Republican side, and we are largely responsible for that 7 month delay. And that's well done, Mitch McConnell, for actually saying that publicly. So if you're a Republican watching this and you want to have a go at me for that, that's Mitch McConnell, who is uber Republican. Staying on the American news, this is Timothy Snyder, who I'm a big fan of, the Yale professor and historian of the region. He has been at another oversight committee today. So this is Jamie Raskin, who I'm a massive fan of. I think he should be president. Anyway, great Yale professor and historian Timothy Snyder says Jamie Raskin testified before oversight today about foreign authoritarian propaganda in a democratic society, and then some GOP colleagues demonstrated how it works. Thanks for your passionate defense of democracy in America and Ukraine, Tim. I would like to see the video come out of this. I'm sure it'll be someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene who gave Tim Snyder a bit of pushback and spouted GOP disinformation propaganda, which is exactly what he's talking on. And indeed, Marjorie Taylor Greene today has said Zelensky is now a dictator in Ukraine since his term officially expired yesterday, and he cancelled elections. Of course, that's constitutionally defended as they are during martial law, and martial law has been extended by the Parliament. This is not democracy, and American taxpayers should not be forced to fund Ukraine's government to the tune of $1 billion per month and nearly $200 billion for a war they can't win. Of course, that's not true either. Just everything about what she's saying is not true. She needs to look into what happened during the war. Say the UK, that we didn't have elections. How long was it? 1935 to 1945 because of the war. They were due to take place, and then the war broke out, and they didn't take place. And that's what happens during war. So unbelievable. And we didn't have war on our shores. So that was the UK. Just honestly, Marjorie Taylor Greene, as I said, so you're obsessed with all the wrong things and things you get wrong. You Russian Muppet puppet. It's not. I'm never going to convince her otherwise. So I just want to tell her where to stick it. Quite frankly, as a human being, I utterly despise. And Russian banks began to close branches en masse after a collapse in profits. 101 closed in April, apparently. This could be a sign. I mean, banks are closing their branches generally anyway. As we move online, I don't need to go into bank branch particularly at all. These days, I do it all by phone or on my app. And I've even shown my parents how to do it on their app, and they do a lot more on their app now. So branches are less useful than they used to be, but it could also be a sign that sanctions are biting, the economy is hurting. Anton Gerashchenko says on May the 20th, US permanent representative to the United Nations, Robert Wood, and I gave you the quote from Wood regarding supporting Ukraine with weaponry as long as Russian soldiers, as soon as the Russian soldiers withdraw, then that weaponry can stop type thing. So on the one hand, we have you can't send missiles over into Russia, the US missiles, but on the other hand, we are going to keep supporting you. And we get these disparate positions, or at least, on the one hand, we're going to support you loads. And on the other hand, it's like, we're going to tie your hand behind your back. But anyway, let's look at a little bit more about what Robert Wood said to the United Nations. So what the United States, he said that they would supply Ukraine with weapons it needed to defend itself against Russia until Russia withdraws its troops. Wood made a statement during a meeting in the UN Security Council summoned by Russia over the supply of weapons to Ukraine. In particular, Russian ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, cynically stated that without Western insistence, quote, the conflict in Ukraine would have ended faster. In addition, he said that possible peace talks should take into account, quote, new territorial realities. In other words, peace talks should take into account what we've stolen. If we're going to have peace, it's like, I've just mugged this old lady for a handbag. Now, if we're going to have peace now, where I stop hitting her, if you want me to stop hitting her, I will stop hitting her. But I am going to keep the handbag. Just so is that all right? Is everyone in agreement here? I have repeatedly hit her around the face. I've stolen a handbag. But look, if you guys want peace, and I think we should have peace, it's irresponsible that this woman is fighting back. I think it's irresponsible. We should have peace. So I will stop punching her repeatedly. I'm going to keep her money. Cool? You cool? Victor over here, Victor Orban, my mate, he's cool with that. Robert Fitzo, he's not very well at the moment. He's cool with that too, by the way. So, I've got mates and they all think it's cool if I keep her money. So that's nice. The US representative noted that over 140 countries in the UN General Assembly have repeatedly condemned Russia's full-scale attack on Ukraine. These allies the Allies also demanded the immediate withdrawal of Russian troops from all territories of Ukraine. Wood also pointed out that Russian troops are receiving weapons, including ammunition, missiles and drones from Iran and North Korea, which have been repeatedly confirmed by the examination of the record of downed air targets over Ukraine. In their recent report, UN experts confirmed that the wreckage of the missile used by Russian troops to attack Kharkiv on January the 2nd belonged to North Korean Hwasong-11 ballistic missiles. That's being sent over from Belgrade into Kharkiv. US ambassador to the UN has stated that in the UN Security Council, whilst his administration says, but you can't retaliate against that foreign missile that was sent into Ukraine from Russia, from Belgrade. You can't retaliate against that missile launcher with a foreign missile yourselves. Moving on. German people out there listening, is this a bigger problem than this one-off instance? Because is this actually part of a spate of incidences that have happened? So a 15-year-old Ukrainian boy has been stabbed in Germany. He was hospitalized after serious injuries from being stabbed by a German in the German city of Dortmund, according to the Bild. Now, this is apparently walked a kilometre before losing consciousness and was hospitalized soon afterwards. This is not the first time this has happened. Germany has seen a number of Ukrainians attacked, some killed, some young lads killed as well. And two members of a basketball team, I think, was stabbed. What's going on in Germany? Is this a problem with Russians in Germany? Is this Russian sympathies within the German population? What's going on there? Or is it just anomalous statistics? Moldova and the EU are to sign a security defence pact. Moldovan Prime Minister Dorin Resian and the European Union's top diplomat Josep Borrell have signed that, so that's really good news. They've become the first country to sign such a document with the EU, which is designed to quite enhance the country's resilience. They are future-proofing Moldova against issues that they see elsewhere, like Serbia, Ukraine, etc., etc. The UN Security Council did not adopt the Russian draft resolution on non-deployment of weapons in space. Now, if you remember, sometime back, the US presented a resolution that the Russians vetoed. This time round, the Russians have presented one. 7 of the 15 member states of the Security Council, including the US, voted against it. The draft resolution was supported by 7 states, including Russia and China, while Switzerland abstained. So 7 and 7, 1 abstention of the 15. Russia's opponent, represented to the UN, Nebenzia, accused the US of seeking to militarize space. In April, Russia vetoed a US-Japanese draft resolution on the non-deployment of nuclear weapons in space. Then all countries except Russia and China voted in favour of the resolution. So Russia and China, who it seems that they are somewhat on the same side here. And indeed, the US is suspecting China of spying through undersea internet cables, according to the Wall Street Journal. The State Department believes the Chinese company SB Submarine Systems, which installs and repairs undersea cables, is deliberately hiding the location of its vessels involved in covert operations. US officials fear that the security of commercial and military data could be jeopardized. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share and do all those wonderful YouTubey things. I really appreciate your support, and toodle pips.